All right, let's do it one and all. Welcome to the show. That's right, the live studio audience. This is Common Threads. We do this here out of beautiful, though very cold today, Brooklyn, New York. 2 guests, 1 hour-ish. Shout out to our sponsor. We'll hear from them more later on throughout the show. But you are the most important part of the show. You watching at home, please sound off in the comments. Let us know what you think about the conversation we're having about the week's worth of news, the week that was, that has been. It feels like we've had many weeks in just the last few days worth of news. We do got some more serious stuff. We're going to give you the necessary context we feel like you need to know from 2 great voices. And again, sound off throughout the hour that we have them. Ask them your questions. We'll put them up on screen, and we want you to be a part of it all. All right, let's bring in our guest. We got Brian Karam, a very old pal of mine from the White House Press Corps. He's currently filing over at Salon.com. Look at this guy. He is ready to rock and roll. This is exactly what I knew we were getting with Brian. You might as well bring it back, man. Listen, Trump's got a second term, and you were like one of the top people I wanted to hear from to get your sense on like the briefings and everything we've had. And we've also got Ant Raimondi. Super thrilled to have Ant, well-known conservative. He is at Conservative Ant across all social media platforms. Can you guys tell me where? I don't want to you don't have to tell us exactly where you are, but like loose geographically, where are you guys coming to us from tonight?
Freedom, USA, Florida.
Freedom, USA, Florida. I love that. Brian Karam?
I'm in the Western Hemisphere, baby.
Western Hemisphere. I love that. Brian Anthony, it is awesome to have you both of you guys here tonight. So, we don't love to start off the show needlessly with heavier stuff, but of course that's it's the top topic of conversation today. And it is, of course, what President Trump, the administration officials have been contending with, which we're going to get into kind of the politics of this. President Trump today, Thursday, appeared to blame diversity initiatives at the FAA for weakening safety following the deadly midair collision between a passenger plane and a Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan Airport last night. Here's the commander-in-chief earlier today.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
A bit later in this, that conclude the side. I think that's it. All right, so that's what the president had to say. We heard a lot more from the same throughout the afternoon. There's a lot of news on this, but a short time before we came on live here tonight, several sources confirming to lots of media outlets, including CBS News, one air traffic controller was managing helicopters and planes, a job normally done by 2 people when the collision happened. Brian, you are a longtime vet of the James Brady briefing room. What do you make of the president's response? We'll leave it there for today.
Well, to hell with it. It's Donald Trump, so you get what you're going to get. But here's the problem as a pilot. And this goes to Trump, Biden, any of them. Don't talk out of your ass about stuff you don't know about. It's obvious he was briefed by the FAA and by the NTSB because he used certain trigger words in his briefing, visuals and the spacing between aircrafts. Those are wake abatement spaces that are always allowed so that when a plane lands, there's a certain amount of time so that the wake churned up by the jet abates and doesn't affect another aircraft. So that's normal. The assignment of the aircraft space at 350, I think, for the aircraft and 200 for the helicopter. He said they were at the same height when obviously they would have to be at the same height or they wouldn't have collided. But that tells you a little bit about what's going on. The visual flight rules. Now, as a pilot, visual flight rules, the helicopter would be more bound by visual flight rules than an aircraft on final approach. Even with visual flight rules, there is instrumentation as you come down. So your glide slope, you're locked into the computer so that you land that wasn't out of normal. And none of this was out of normal. What it was and what it speaks to is the fact that with only one ATC operator on duty, we've had a problem in this country attracting qualified people, and it goes back 40 years when the ATC struck, when they had a strike. Ronald Reagan fired all of those members of the ATC, all the air traffic controllers. That was a huge and bad thing. And so since then, it's been hard to get people. That we have struggled for years. And Washington, D.C. is one of the busiest corridors in this country. I have flown through that particular corridor with visual flight rules. I had a member of the ATC save my life one day when he got on the radio and said, "You've got traffic at your 12 o'clock, 2 miles out, vector, to the left." Well, to my, it was 270 degrees immediately. I did. I watched the Navajo fly by me. The guy that had his thumb up his ass never even saw me. That guy saved my life. By the way, I sent him some bourbon. So, and I thanked him for it. So until we really know what's going on, you don't get ahead of your skis and tell us that it's something else, because we don't know at this point. As a pilot, I will tell you, 90% of air traffic accidents are pilot error or mechanical error. The ATC, if anything, those poor bastards are overworked and we need more of them. No one hires an ATC, hires anyone for air traffic control under a D&I initiative that can't meet the task, because if they did, there would be a lot more crashes than we've had in the system. If you can't do the job, you don't get hired for the job because you can't do the job. So I agree with a portion of what the president said about hiring people that are qualified for the job, but you got to get people to apply for the job. So you're going to have to pay them more. You're going to have to raise the budget for these people. We don't do it. It's notorious when the federal government cuts its budget. Those are some of the first people they cut. And that's been going on for 40 years. So you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it fixed by screaming DEI. By the way, that's disgusting. I see it as disgusting and an insult to the people who died.
Anthony, I don't know, and I appreciate that from Brian. Obviously, I don't know that everyone agrees and that they view it as disgusting. I feel like right? I mean, a lot of people obviously, and we got one comment already says, what a breath of fresh air to have Trump back at the podium. And I will say, it's a brief note aside, but I even think Brian would agree, but I'm going to go to Anthony first, that it is refreshing to have the president speak at the Brady Room. But of course, we're talking about the context, of course, right? Like, let's just be honest here. We are used to that who covered the first Trump administration. We've not really had much of that the last few years. But let me get an Anthony. Hold on, Brian. Anthony, your take on the response from Trump back in the briefing room today.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what he just said, because I don't know what he just said because I am not a pilot. I have no idea. So just coming from an average American that might have been part of the 1,000 qualified people that could have taken that job during the Obama and Biden administration that didn't hire people that could have filled those positions because of certain DEI hires. And it's not only Black Americans that we're talking about. People who might be deaf, people who might have ailments, people who might not be mentally fit that they have to fill quotas for.
That's not what happened, though. That's you can't hire someone to be an air traffic controller that's deaf, blind, or mentally compromised. That's just, if you've ever been in one of these rooms, I have, and if you can't do the job, they're not going to hire you.
But don't you think the DEI, just the simple fact that we are hiring people based on their race or sexual orientation or anything else,
that's the basis of hiring someone, that's wrong. But what DEI is supposed to be is opening up opportunities to those who don't get the job to fulfill the requirements that the president spoke of. Because the feeling was, and I'm not going to be one to defend the way they've treated this, because there are obviously people that were hired to fill quotas. That's been going on since I was a kid. But that's not what DEI is meant to do. It's meant to open up opportunities to those who don't get them and fulfill the very same thing that the president said he wanted, the most qualified people for the job. So in the case of the ATC, air traffic controllers, you can't hire people to fit a quota if they're mentally deranged, if they're deaf. You don't hire them just because
if they're deaf. Right. You can't hire Helen Keller. Listen, I'm not.
All right.
There's a minimum
Anthony, hold on. Brian, hold on one second. Anthony, go for it.
I'm not saying that you're hiring Helen Keller, but maybe between a white guy, between a white guy and a trans woman, they might hire the trans women because they have to fill that quota.
Well, here's the thing. They didn't hire
anybody. Why would they do that?
They haven't got qualified people. If I would accept that if they were full up with people and they're turning people away, but they don't have enough people. They're just trying to get more qualified people to fill these slots. So JD, as you said at the beginning, this was an empty slot. There was only one person doing the job of two. So this isn't a DEI issue. This is we can't find any motherfucker to fill the job issue. That's what this is.
God, maybe Helen Keller would do a great job.
Well,
I have no fucking idea.
Be able to hear, read, speak, communicate, walk around a certain level. And he's all right. And the president was right about there's being a certain level of accountability for these people. Like my geniuses. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but you got to be qualified to get this job. Now, if it boils down to, hey, we've got 38 qualified applicants and we're going to hire just the 2 black people, come and hit me with that. All right, then it's an issue. But you've got empty slots. There are not enough people applying for these jobs. But going back to what you said earlier, JD, and this is the God's honest truth. I said, and I gave Biden grief about this, and they hated me for it. And I was accused of being a Trumper because I said their biggest problem is they don't put Biden out in that briefing room. And they didn't. And here comes now. So I said that the Biden communications staff was the worst I've ever worked with since Ronald Reagan. And people got pissed. Quickly, even though he is now in the briefing room, I'm now finding that this current administration is worse than that. Every one of them, every president I've worked with, and I'll give 2 exceptions. Larry Speaks, I think with Reagan was pretty good. We didn't get along well, but he was a nice. He was good. And then Mike McCurry was the best during the Clinton administration. And the rest of them have been a long march down the hill, and it's shills and propagandists from the Democrats to the Republicans. There's no difference.
So let me shout this comment here. Conservative Willie says they didn't, I assume, put Biden out there because he couldn't complete a sentence. And I think the bigger question is
100%.
Do you of course. But and hold on, a question for Ann here. And is it so? And like the thing is, I think obviously we all lived through the first Trump administration. We know that, and listen, I watch Democrats do this after other tragedies, a school shooting or whatever. There is a thing where members of Congress far too often. This happened after the Jussie Smollett nonsense. You remember all that? Like, people come out, they don't know the facts, they jump the gun, they use something that happens to score political points or to further that type of agenda. And I suppose with the overarching question, I think the frustration or head-scratching nature for a lot of people today, and is this really that, like, when we're still, this is a recovery effort for the president to come out and talk about stuff like that? What do you think?
I agree with that, which is why I really struggled with making a video today. I really for myself wanted a day to just kind of like, let's let the day pass. But here's the thing, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't for any administration. So if he didn't come out here and talk about something or talk about it, then it'd be like, where is he? Where is he, right? If Biden didn't come out he usually didn't come out for about 75 days, we would be like, hi, hello, where's Joe at? Where's he at? We don't know where he's at. So I like the fact that he comes out right after. He's always on TV. Every single person in this administration is accessible at all times. Yes.
No, they're not.
Why? How not?
Well, they're the same as they were before. They ghost reporters. They don't return emails. Biden did it. This guy does it. No one's that accessible. It's a bullshit lie that every administration tells everybody, and you buy it when it's your guy there, and you don't buy it when it's not your guy there.
So Joe was accessible?
No, fuck no. I just told you he was the worst. They were completely inaccessible.
Okay.
where the hell did I told you I was accused of being a Trumper because I said get his and I told him this. I said he speaks better for his administration than you all do. And if you get him out, look, all Biden had to do was come out every 6 weeks into the briefing room, do a tight 10, and then go, hey, fellas, I'm old. I need a nap. I got to go. And so when he bombed at the first, debate, people would have given him the benefit of the doubt if they had seen him for, 3 years before doing his job. Joe just had a bad night. But he didn't. He screwed himself. And the Democrats, their problem is they want to tell me that they care about everything in the world and they love us, but they don't. Donald Trump tells me I'm the enemy of the people. Joe Biden tells me he appreciates the First Amendment. Both of them treat us the same way.
I will say for Trump over many years saying the press more broadly, you're all the enemy of the people. I will say explicitly that this man has been told directly by Donald Trump, you, Brian Karem, you are enemy of the people, because that's how Brian's role is for the first administration.
So Joe Biden is for the First Amendment?
What part of what I said don't you get? No.
Then I'm missing it. I'm not getting what you're saying.
No, in fact, I'm saying that one pretends that tells me I'm the enemy of the people. The other one says he's my friend, and they both treat us the same way. That's what the problem. And they sell you a line of bullshit, right? Every president's selling you a line of bullshit. Now, you're likely to believe the guy that you like the most, right? And likely to not believe the guy you don't like. Donald Trump was never about accessibility. He loves the attention. And I take the blame for getting involved in chopper talk, because for the first 4 months of his first administration, he would walk out and wave at us and do what every other president does. As the helicopter's whirring, he'd stick his and pretend like he couldn't hear us. Then one day he walks out, and this is a God's honest truth, fellas. He walked out with that white shirt on, the red tie. He had his dark suit on. His hair is flapping in the breeze. For all the world, he looked like Rodney Dangerfield. So as he's walking out, I said, Mr. President, tough room, And he turned around and he goes, okay, Playboy, what do you got? And from there, he began talking to us at Chopper Talk. He felt comfortable in that situation, and he felt like he could control the room. Biden never felt like he could control any room, so he didn't show up at all. But at the end of the day, you're either getting bullshit to or you're getting ignored. And the bottom line is, for the American people, neither are a viable option if you want to learn what's going on.
And because Brian and I are talking a lot about the James Brady briefing room, and Brian's referring to like South Lawn departures, which when the president goes out onto Marine One and parts, and if we're lucky, we can kind of get a gaggle, get some questions in. Two questions for you, Ant. Number one, because we did have this new White House a few days ago said they would open up hard pass accessibility for independent content creators, people who are big on social media. Obviously, this is the new media election. And would you consider applying? I agree with Brian. I think it's a good thing. Fucking open it up.
Yeah,
I did apply.
You did. So tell me about the process of applying. What would you go to? What, if you were to make trips to DC to go do that? Because it's new for a White House to be able to do that. And also, Ant, your take on what we've seen from either today or briefings in general in the last week or so.
So I think that it is super. I mean, it's super important for us to be involved in this process, considering the fact that this administration really, having podcasters and influencers kind of change the trajectory of the election makes sense to have us in there. What I do think they should do, though, is they should filter in all of the different influencers and content creators by month, or we have 4 years, so they can. There's many of them. What I fear this White House is going to do, this is the first time I'm saying it publicly, is there is an influencer legacy media. People don't really notice that, but there is a legacy media influencer, and it is the ones that's in kind of the club. So they're going to have your influencers that push out all of the news from the current administration, and those are going to be the first people that are going to be in that newsroom. So I do not like these guys, and I'm not going to mention names, but you already know from the top of your head which influencers are automatically shoo-ins that are going to be sitting in that briefing room. So all of the other influencers, I really hope they don't forget about, because we did go hard for them as well.
You have hit on a great point, and here's what you're going to see happen. They'll give you a day pass, right? You may not get a hard pass because it's really difficult to get a hard pass. So when they're asking you to sign up, guess what? You already can. That hasn't changed. That in fact, they've encouraged it. Biden encouraged it. The first administration with Trump encouraged it. They're mentioning it to placate you because here's what's going to happen. Notice in that first briefing with the press secretary, she said she's tired of the legacy media. And by the way, Donald Trump had a news conference already. Well, that's a lie. What he had was an extended pool spray with who? Legacy media. Donald Trump has people, there's 6 companies that own or operate 95% of what you see, read, or hear. All of them have been over to Donnie. And by the way, the travel pool and the local pool are the ones that get the most access. And they're not going to get rid of the corporate media there. They can't, because those guys travel and pay to travel with the president, pay to play. They have the greatest access. They do the most damage to free press. I think that all independent media should be allowed in that briefing room. I don't think, and you should be seated on a first come, first served basis. Those first 2 rows, when he threatened to dump them in the back, I was the first one cheering. Good. I'm tired of seeing these morons anyway. I got in a fight with one of them at a Biden press briefing where, I'm trying to ask a question and this, reporter's jumping in and I go, what's wrong with you? I'm with a pool. And I said, that's why you should shut up because you ask stupid questions. And Biden was the first one to wave at me and go, yeah. And so they know, they take advantage of you. The only thing I want to see among those independent is it's okay to call yourself an independent opinion maker, an independent influencer. But if you're going to call yourself an independent reporter or journalist, I just want to make sure you've got an editor who is making sure that what you print is not just your opinion, that it's vetted factual information, because even the corporate media has given up a lot of that. And nobody likes it anymore.
Slashed a lot of jobs. Yeah. And go for it.
You know what? Here's what I really like to see, and I don't consider myself necessarily a journalist. Am I an independent journalist? Sure, I give you the facts that I read about and look into and all the stuff but I do it in my own way, in my comedic way. I'm a commentator. I'm an entertainer. So I give you whatever the news is of the day, but with my own touch to it. What I would like to see from this administration is just what the Biden administration did. And one thing that I think the Biden administration was really doing good, actually, that we didn't capitalize on until Laura Trump came into the mix, and Trump's son, was we need to make content with these people. So you want to humanize the conservative movement? That's great. Bring me out to DC for the day and let me make some content with Caroline. Let me make content with JD Vance. Let me make content with all of the administration, because they did that in the Biden administration. They brought influencers to the White House. They made stuff. They made content with Kareem Jean-Pierre. They made content they did Under the Desk News. They made content with Obama. They tried to make them look cool. Here's the difference is right now, this administration does look pretty cool. So everybody that's surrounding them looks cool. So let's continue that, but you need to bring us out there and you need to put us in there. And you can't have, when I say legacy influencers, everybody already knows off the top of their head the people that I'm thinking of. And it's the normal people that, okay, I'm just going to use this for an example, Joe Rogan. We already know Joe Rogan's going to be there already. But why? He already did that. He already had Trump on. Move over. Bring in an independent influencer. Bring in somebody that might have 1 million followers, 2 million followers. Let them do their thing. We already saw him on Joe Rogan. We're past that.
Go over, Rover, and let Jimmy take over. I'm in it.
It's not wrong. Actually, I'm going to stick.
I don't have anything against Joe Rogan or any of these big time influencers that I'm talking about, but those are journalists. They're not influencers. They've claimed themselves as
Joe Rogan
independent journalists. Or not.
Right.
He's an opinion maker. Joe Rogan's an opinion maker.
Sure.
Well, I'm not even talking about him when I say journalists. I'm talking about all the ones that put out the news on X and Twitter and stuff that we all know the big names.
Oh, you know what? That's a good. I need a word for that type of person. There's a lot, and I've interviewed them, and it's like what's that dude's name? Mario Narwhal. Like there's a bunch of them that's like they're like blue check marks. They got like 1 million followers. I don't know who they are or what they do, but they're sort of news aggregators, and the stuff they put out, it's just got like they just dangle enough speculation onto a story that they just sprinkle it in there so something goes like wildfire viral, especially unfortunately after tragedies or things like that. And they do killer numbers, and they're the few accounts that Elon Musk happens to follow, and so you see them amplified. Wait, let me stick with Ant for this next one. Ant, this might be the most important question I ask you. Ant, can you give us a quick tour of your favorite stuff behind you? What is behind you?
This is all of the things that people have made for me over the years.
Can we take Ant for, yeah?
Or stuff that we can take a little.
I see you got a Trump cutout. I'm watching in the when you go full screen. I was like, well, I can't not address your background.
I do.
We can do it. It's my show. I do what I want.
I have the Trump cutout. I have the. Sorry, it's like reverse.
This is Common Threads After Dark right now.
It's weird for me. Hold on. Let me turn the light on for you since we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of stuff back here, man.
Rocking. A lot of stuff there. Got some MAGA hats. What's the other cutout? What's the one behind the TV? That's Trump also?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I can't do it when I'm reversed. Like, it's weird for me. There
you go. All right.
There you go.
All right. Appreciate the kind. I don't know how many interviews you get to do where people are like, hey, just show off your. Oh, you're rocking a Trump shirt tonight too?
Oh yeah, he's blowing a piece of bubble gum just to show people.
I'm gonna be honest, man. If you could send us those, we'll take a few of them. All right, Brian, Ant, hang out 1 second. Let's hear from our sponsors because I like eating and I like keeping the lights on around here. Folks, if you're serious about investing, you gotta know all about public.com. You can invest in everything. Scan the QR code to learn more stocks, options, bonds, crypto, you name it, they got it. They offer some of the highest yields in the industry, like the bonds accounts, 6% or higher yield. It stays locked in even as the Fed cuts rates. The Fed did not cut interest rates yesterday. There was a 0.5% chance that Jay Powell was going to cut interest rates yesterday. He didn't. Is it a skip? Is it a pause? They're going to keep cutting rates at some point, but you can take advantage of it with an account over at Public. What sets Public apart from the competition is how they give you the tools to make informed investment decisions. They got a built-in AI tool. It's called Alpha. It's absolutely awesome. Doesn't just tell you if an asset's moving, it tells you why an asset's moving. That context is crucial to be an informed investor. Investing for those who take it seriously, public.com/CT to learn more. Scan the QR code for you. We could not have made it easier. Special shout out to Public. All right, Brian and Ann. Oh, wait, hold on. Taylor, what are we doing next? You want to do the New York Mag? Yeah. All right, Cruel Kids table. This is because we're already at 7:35. So this was the headline. This is we want to go, we do some of the more social commentary on stuff. New York Magazine, this is according to the Hollywood Reporter. New York Mag on the defensive over its most recent issue's cover. It paints a picture of an all-white celebration in D.C. on the eve of Trump's inauguration, but was revealed to have been cropped out to cut out several black attendees at the event. If you've spent 30 seconds on Twitter in the last maybe 5 days, you've seen this everywhere. Ant, I'm curious your thoughts about this, about how New York Magazine chose to kind of go about it, and then kind of the backlash you've had from a lot of conservatives involved with this event to say, clearly, at least as they say, this is left media. They're not learning their lesson here, and they're trying to paint a certain picture of a certain type of Trump supporter.
They definitely are. Look, I've been to many of these events. I've been to Mar-a-Lago, and I'm part of the, I guess, LGBT community they say is not included within the right. We've been to many events at Mar-a-Lago. We go to these events. It's the most diverse party now. It is not the same Republican Party that your grandfather used to be a part of or your dad used to be a part of. It is super diverse. This is just something that they're doing to just make you think, oh, it's all white supremacists. It's all the mean kids. It's the white kids. It's not like that at all. So it's bullshit, of course.
Brian, any thoughts specifically here on this? It's a Twitter controversy, but you never know when the president may weigh in.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. Here, look, but it's not your mother and father's Republican Party. There used to be a liberal wing of the Republican Party. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Not anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that only racists are for Donald Trump. I'm saying that if you're a racist, you're probably for Donald Trump.
That's bullshit. I get more hate from liberals. I get called the F word. No, spare me. I get called the F word from liberals all the time.
Please. I get called worse.
Democrat liberals are even more racist. They're virtue signalers.
Are you trying to? You're looking for an argument? What are you telling me that liberals aren't racist? Of course they are. That's not my point. My point is, if you're white, maybe I misspoke. If you're white supremacist, you're probably for Donald Trump. You're not for the liberal wing of anything. And not everyone that supports Donald Trump is a racist. And there are plenty. What the Democratic Party has done is they've not been able to communicate with Americans where they live and breathe. And Donald Trump has. And he's done so by echoing and playing to an audience. What is it that bothers you? Donald Trump hears it. He'll repeat it. He'll support it. The Democrats want to tell you that they know exactly what it is that's best for you, and that's why you should support them. And the problem with the Democrats is that they'll eat their own. And the problem with the Republicans is they only care about winning. The bottom line is we have two political parties in this country. One has no heart and one has no head. Now, you decide which is which. But I'm telling you.
I suspect I know which one is which. Yeah.
But the bottom line is the biggest problem in this country isn't Republican or Democrat. It's rich versus poor. That's the real divide. And the real majority, and I've heard the Republicans scream about the silent majority since Richard Nixon. And the problem is the real silent majority in this country are those people who do not vote. So if you're going to have an opinion, at least get off your fat ass and go vote. I may agree or disagree with you, but I'll at least cheer you for getting involved in voting. If you don't vote, shut the fuck up and sit down. Sorry, can we curse? I didn't ask, JD.
You told us we can curse. You told us we can curse.
We're live on PBS right now. I can't believe you guys are cursing. We got Sesame Street airing after us. No, you guys say whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. And if you don't mind me asking, because I don't know much about your terms of background, you remind me when you said the Mar-a-Lago comment. Have you always, first of all, to Brian's point, it's like that old adage of, if you're young, what is it? You're young and conservative. You got no heart. If you're older and liberal, you got no brain. It's kind of like reminds me of that. It's the idea that as you get older, you learn a little bit more about the world. You're more inclined to get a little more red-pilled, and you kind of look around and you're like, fuck, okay, I get it. I used to think that was a detestable take, but now I really understand it. And have you always been conservative?
No, I'm a two-time Obama voter, actually.
Pivot voter. Tell me about that. Why?
Yeah, so I grew up right outside Chicago, so I was always part of the LGBT community, and I thought that was my duty as a gay person in the United States is to vote, Democrat, because they were going to always help us. But they never did. And then Donald Trump came around, and I was like, wow, I really relate to this guy because he's like kind of cool as fuck. And then I started kind of waking up a little bit. I think I walked away from the Democrat Party when they started to throw around the you're racist, you're homophobic, you're phobic, you're this, you're that without giving me talking points. And that's when I was like, okay, you guys are fucked up, I'm out. And then when they started to add the pronouns, they really fucking lost me because I had no idea what they were talking about. And then when I started to see the attack on children in schools and then doing the whole gender ideology and teaching kids about weird things, I was really out. Not out of the closet. I was already out of the closet. I was out. I was like walked away from the Democrat Party a long time ago.
Let me stick with you for this next one. And are there any Democrats that you've looked at in the last few years and be like, yeah, I would vote for that Democrat? If Gavin Newsom makes a run or Amy Klobuchar, that's my style Democrat. No one, really?
No.
That's a problem for the Democratic Party. I ask so many Republican and conservative friends of mine, is there anyone? And for a long time, many years ago, I heard Buttigieg as an answer, and then not anymore. And I don't see anyone on the fence.
He's too short. Everybody says they'll never get elected because and I'll say Pete Buttigieg will never get elected because he's too short. We elect tall people. If
we elected Obama, Obama's gay.
All right, here's my question. Do you know Andy Beshear?
Andy Beshear, Kentucky, yeah.
Do you know him, Anthony?
I don't know him personally. I know of.
All right, if you know of him, he might be someone you would look at. There are Democrats. I would personally, I don't like any of them. I want to get money out of politics. I would love to hear a politician speak to me honestly, and none of them do. And at the end of the day, I want someone I have pushed on this issue for at least 20 years. I've testified in Congress. I've testified in state legislatures. Break up the freaking media monopolies and invest in journalism. give tax breaks to, we have 45% of the counties in this country do not have a local news source. That's almost half the country without a local news source. And local news brings people together. You build communities. All we have is a national media scene where we divide people and split them apart. And you choose and you stay in your own little informational silo. And you call anybody outside of that silo an enemy. We're not enemies. We're all Americans. But I want to see an reinvestment in local media. They say newspapers have died. Yeah. And government killed it. Every president, beginning with Ronald Reagan, and I'm including every Democrat and every Republican, has destroyed local news and the First Amendment. And I call bullshit whenever I hear any of them say they're supporting free speech, because none of them have broken up the media monopolies. That you want me to take you seriously? Great. Do that. Because it was Ben Bagikian who said, if you want to have diversity in this country, you need a diversity of owners. By the way, I'm sorry, for those who don't know, he was former editor of the Washington Post, who said, and he couldn't get a job there today, he said, if you want true diversity in the United States, diversity of representation, you need diversity of ownership. With 6 companies owning and operating 95% of what you see, read, or hear, I guarantee you that none of them are tilted liberal and none of them are tilted conservative. They're tilted toward where they can get their freaking money.
Here's what
end of rant. Sorry, but I got to get that rant in.
You're good. Let me read this comment. I'll kick it over to Ann. At this point, there needs to be no party, says Nikki Ray. Just people and merits. It's literally created to divide before we even start the process. I love Brian's point on local news deserts. Ant, go for it.
Me too. Yeah, so here's what I will say. I know I can speak for some of my former friends that are still liberals, but they don't talk to me anymore. I do remember when,
I love you. I'll talk to you anytime you want.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I actually could talk to you. You're normal.
Wait a minute! Don't you dare accuse me of that!
Don't insult me by calling me normal.
I'm not talking to him anymore.
Once you put on the hat, though, you lose me a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. What I will say is when I did see the people who were running against Donald Trump the first time around, all of us were kind of like, not this recycled bitch again. Like, it's always the same recycled people. And I was like, fucking Hillary again? Like, come on. Like, give me something. Like, if there was somebody to work with for us to actually, like, fall in line, like Tulsi Gabbard, if she was a Democrat running for president, I probably would have voted for her. But they always give us the same recycled bullshit. And I'm just like, why is Hillary here again?
Why is
Can
Trump
you just go on a fucking island someplace and go on vacation? I don't want to look at you in your pantsuits. Jeez. So it's always the same people. She's horrible in them.
Pantsuits aside,
and then Joe Biden's always wearing a fucking couch dress. It looks like she's wearing her grandmother's fucking couch sheets.
Joe Biden. Joe Biden. He's wearing what?
You mean Jill? I don't think Joe wore them, but nonetheless. You talk about recycled everybody. Hey, Donald Trump's recycled. I go back to that.
Only twice, though.
Well, only twice. Yeah.
Only twice. What? He ran 3 times. The Republican Party's been stuck for 20 years since what? Well, at least 20 when he walked down the elevator, right? 15 almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't have voted for Republicans before Trump, though. So think of that. I wasn't going to vote for but actually moving forward,
well, he fooled you.
There are so many more Republicans that I would vote for after Trump, and I have 0 Democrats that I would vote for.
Well, like JD permanent eyeliner Vance, the reason why my grandmother put plastic seat covers on her couch.
You leave JD alone.
Yes, leave me alone. No,
J baby.
and is there a and I was here here in New York when Trump did the MSG rally. You know, back right before the election, I was talking to a lot because people were lined up the night before, and I was talking with a lot of them. I said, "Is there kind of an heir apparent to MAGA? Is it right now Vice President Vance, Ant, because it's just sort of like next in line for succession?" Or you also mentioned Gabbard, who's depending. I don't know if you guys caught Gabbard today, but she's up. Obviously, she was one of the big ones with Kash Patel and Bobby Jr. for in front of the Senate.
Yeah, so listen, if any of the homocons are watching, I know y'all love JD. You guys have posters above your beds. It's amazing. We all love JD Vance. Yeah, I think JD, I love Byron. I mean, I love Byron Donald. I mean, there's so many that I would look forward to.
Come on.
You leave by. Can you just leave them alone? Go.
Hell alone. My job is to give all hell. I'm not leaving any of them alone. Fuck them all.
Just fucking with you, I know, but it's like my little baby. You just leave them alone.
I want somebody with some common fucking sense on either side of the aisle step up. Just somebody who could fucking make sense to the American people. And someone, by the way, a little younger than Moses. I mean, I don't want somebody.
JD is my age. He's 40.
Yes, but JD has permanent eyeliner. I'm not voting for that guy.
I can't stand you.
And hillbilly elegy, come on! I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, man. Talk about, I mean, he is not hillbilly elegy. Nice book, no. I read it.
Listen, if he's wearing permanent eyeliner, he has a chance with the trans community at least.
he's Hey now, JD. Somebody step on a duck.
I like this comment. I voted for Gary Damn Johnson because I refused to vote for Obama twice. Did he run? Where did he run? Libertarian 2016? Yeah, Libertarian, folks. There's no third party. Well, obviously Bobby ran. Then you get like the Cornell Wests of the world. I like the. What's that, Ant?
I thought Roseanne ran one time while Obama was running.
Imagine being a reporter in the Roseanne Barr presidency.
Well, there'd be a lot of nuts in that one, but
that's a mess. I love her, but it's a mess.
Yeah. Brian, Ant, hang on one second. We're going to hear from our sponsor one last time here, and then we'll bring you guys back in for the end of the show. Folks, time now to talk about our sponsor. Keep the lights on, public.com/CT. If you're serious about investing, even if you're not yet, and you're like, shit, I need to get better with my money. This is the platform for it. Scan the QR code. You can invest in everything: crypto, bonds, stocks, options. Honestly, I don't know about meme coins. I don't think meme coins, like serious investing stuff. They offer some of the highest yields in the industry. Like they got a bond account at 6% or higher yield that stays locked in, even when Jay Powell and his colleagues cut federal interest rates. What sets Public apart is how they give you the tools you need to make informed investment decisions. Their built-in AI tool called Alpha doesn't just tell you if an asset's moving, it tells you why. You want that context. You want to know what you're doing. I'm not a financial advisor, but I and many other people always say if you buy a stock, you buy an equity, you buy something, have your reasons why. Have a shopping list for when things get cheap. A lot of things got cheap after Monday's session. Hope people piled in. But know where you're buying. Have your top 2 or 3 reasons why. This gives you all the information you need to know. Head on over to public.com/CT to learn more, or scan the QR code because our producers made that, and it's a nice graphic, and like you got to use it here at some point. Let's bring in Ann and Brian back in. It is 7:49. I feel like let's head to say something. Yeah, let's do that now because that might breathe for a little bit. Guys, it's time now for our fan favorite segment here on Common Threads.
Say something.
Say something nice.
Sponsored by public.com. Okay, so Brian and Ant, so the kind of the original idea of the show was more or less to like find common ground between people who don't always agree. The show has evolved, but this is my favorite segment, and I was inspired to do this because of the 2016 debate between Clinton and Trump, where one of the questions was, can you, for the love of God, just say something nice about the other person? And so I really liked that. I always thought about that question and think back, and I was like, that's just awesome. I think that's what we're hearing about. So I'm going to start with Brian. I'm going to give Ant the last word of the show. So Brian, it could be Trump, it could be any of the Democrats you disagree with, to anyone in the great arena of political debate with whom you do not see eye to eye. Brian Karam, say something nice.
Jesus. Well, Donald Trump, you have nice nipples. I don't know. That's no. All right. So if I'm going to say something nice about, if I'm going to say something nice, I will say that I appreciate the idea that people that we live in a meritocracy, and if those words were adhered to by the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, we'd all be a lot better. And I'll say something nice to all politicians. I see in talking to all of them at one point or another, that little spark of humanity, that little bit of love. If you let that out and quit being fearful of other people, but actually let that part of yourself out, I think the world would be a better place. Because at the end of the day, man, we're all going in the same place. We all end up in the same place. And it's about goddamn time we treated each other with a lot more love and respect. So that's my nice thing that I wish and I would say about others, because I do see it. I see it in Trump. I see it in JD permanent eyeliner. I'm going to make fun of Anthony. I can't help it. I see it in Jamie Raskin. I see it in Nancy Pelosi. I see it in every politician I've ever fought with. And I saw it in Biden. And I would just wish that those people would let their real selves out a little bit more, and we're a little more honest and loving of other people.
Here, dear. Well said. That was sweet, man. But that's what it's all about. Listen, we've done this segment before with other guests, and it goes off the rails so fast. I mean, this wouldn't be the case.
I thought it was actually. I'm surprised. I thought Brian was going to go off the rails. I'm impressed.
No. You see, listen, Brian.
Look, man, I've got 2 grandkids. I look at their faces with hope. I have a granddaughter who's 3 months. I have a grandson who's 5 years. They look at the world. Everything to them is about hope and wonder. And that's what we lose. We lose that as adults, and we need to retain that. I don't care what color you are, what race you are, what creed you are, what religion. I don't give a shit. If you want to go play ball in the backyard, let's go have fun.
Love that.
Awesome. And how about you, my man? I know you come in. Obviously, people know you from social as @conservative Ant. I got to imagine whether it's the Democrats, the previous administration, the voters who did not vote for Trump. You got a lot of never Trumpers. Brian, give me something nice about everyone with whom you disagree.
Brian or Anthony? You want me to?
Oh, Ant. Apologies. Thank you, Dan. Ant, go for it.
I don't even have that hat on. Come on.
I love what Brian said, actually. I think one of the greatest moments recently that I saw was Obama and Donald Trump shooting the shit together at the funeral. I think that kind of showed a little bit of what Brian was talking about. And I think that a lot of Americans are actually more on the same page and united than not. And the one bad thing that I think social media does is show how divided we are, because they only show people with Trump derangement syndrome, and then they show people on the extreme right and the extreme left. So the one nice thing I will say is I think that Michelle Obama looks better in pantsuits than Hillary Clinton does.
I think Kamala Harris looks better than both of them.
Okay.
Ant's not convinced with that one. Ant is not convinced with that one. But
I'll tell you a story when we get offline.
Yeah, that's for the true after hours. Actually, I'm going to ask, because I got you guys for another minute. Brian, we had a comment from someone asking you to say something nice about Ant's room, about his backdrop.
Ant's room?
Yeah, what do you think about the back there for
I think it reflects his love. Well, that's cool as shit.
Cool shit.
Thank you.
I love that. Shout out to Sabat for that question. I really
appreciate
that.
And that is my by the way, that behind me, that's my one of those. There you go. That's my grandfather, who immigrated to this country from Lebanon, being chased by the Turks after they raped his sister. And he came to the United States, and he is my light and inspiration, and always has been. And it's a pleasure just to see him over my shoulder whenever I am on TV.
I had a lot of emotions in that. I was smiling, and then I was oh. And then I was oh.
I laughed, I cried, and had everything.
Bit of a roller coaster response. No, that's beautiful, man. We're grateful for that. And I'm super grateful for both of you guys, because you're different. You're just different chapters of what journalism looks like today. And I say this, in terms of Brian Karam, a real legacy dude who's been in just the briefing room and done battle down in D.C. for a long time. And then for Ant, man, the dude, the way you have built content and reached an audience on these new platforms, because I think Ant really seems to understand the importance of going to viewers where they are. And I think if there's one thing that I could kind of and I could kind of shake the legacy network, or the Too Cool for School types down in DC, was a lot of people like to stand on ceremony, and they stand behind the badge or whoever they're working for, and they just there's this separation from people. And Ant, I feel like you've done an incredible job.
I can't stand most reporters, JD. You get that one right. I get tired of the bubble is just somebody burst it. I'm so sick of access journalism. I'm so sick of people taking themselves more seriously than their job. Take the job seriously if you want, but never take yourself seriously, folks. Just enjoy the fucking ride. And by the way, just do your best.
Brian, you're awesome. I don't really like many liberals, but you're pretty cool.
I don't think Brian's really a liberal.
No, he's not. He's in the middle.
Here's the thing. Like, I knew when we were going to have Brian on, I was like, yeah, I know how Brian feels about Trump, but Brian's not like Brian he calls balls and strikes. That's every happy hour drink, every whatever I've gone out to with Brian in DC over the years is like, nah, this dude calls it for what it is. Ant, what were you saying?
He's not. He doesn't have a personal meltdown when you say Trump's name. That's the difference. He doesn't have that mental disorder. So,
no, I think people in the Trump White House have a breakdown when they hear Brian Karem's name, to be sure. Because he's been a ball buster through and through since I started. But I'm so grateful.
He called me by my name once. Most of the time, it was Playboy. What do you got, Playboy?
Playboy. Yeah. You were you were doing the Playboy interview back in the day. That's awesome.
I was the last standing reporter at Playboy magazine. I was their chief White House correspondent, and before it crashed. And yes, the parties are great.
I know. I was a Playboy bunny. It was a good time.
Was that you? Did I grab? I thought you looked familiar. God damn it.
I had different ears on, different hat on.
But I played with a tail, so there.
And Ant's like, oh, that was you. Oh, God. There it is.
Exactly. Oh, that makes sense now.
Super grateful to both you guys. Honestly, open invitation. Super grateful to not only you, all the viewers. We crushed it across platforms tonight, and you guys are the reasons why. Super grateful for everyone tuning in. You guys have an open forum. Please come back absolutely anytime onto the show. We'll book you two together. We'll book you a different guest. But I think context and perspective, the way you both bring to help us just understand and feel a little bit better about where we are after a week like we've had. Absolutely awesome. I wish you both nothing but the best. Brian Karem, Ant Raimondi.
Love you, JD. Anytime.
Thank you, fellas.
Bro.
You guys enjoy,
Anytime.
and we'll do it again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. All right. There we go. How about for our guests? Let's give it up here, huh? They were awesome. And I was like, they get into it a little bit early on. I was like, no, they're gonna jive. They're gonna figure out a connection here. Let's bring in Taylor and Dan Mesko, Japan Dan the man. Let's go over some of our favorite comments from the night. We got lots.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What is this called?
What is this called?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Everyone wait. Wait.
No, false. Stand by.
This is gonna be worth it.
This is worth it.
I don't have it ready. Hold on. Let's go to it first, and then I'll put it up. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Let's go to it first.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Let's go to us first?
Yeah.
Welcome back. Dan shaved. I'm having a hard time recognizing Dan there on the other side. Can we pull up some comments here? Because, guys, people crushed it on the comments. Absolutely. We're really grateful for that because that's part of the conversation. That's what we always felt like was different about this. Mm-hmm. You could ask your questions, sound off. As long as it's more or less appropriate, we'll put it on the show. That was great. Following this page. Straight Talk Turncoat. Thank you. Turncoat. Definitely followed the page. Love this. Conservative Willie was like one of the MVP commenters throughout the night. Absolutely awesome stuff for both our guests. Sabat was great. We kicked that to Brian. Thank you so much. Had fun. Needed this after the crazy time. Sabat's down there in DC. Shout out to the DMV. Yeah, I miss the district, but it's like you have weeks like this. You're like, God, why do I live here? We love Ant. Yeah, I agree, Turncoat. We love Ant also. We're gonna get Ant back on the show if he was great. Down. He's awesome. He was terrific. Ant say something nice about how he loves the eyeliner. Help him find where he can get it done. Listen, I might be interested in that too. He might not. Vice President might not be the only JD with television eyeliner. No, of course. Yeah, dude. There's also something like Vance crushes it in interviews. I gotta give him a lot of credit. He's just like there's a really no BS thing to him. He pushes back, and I don't think all politicians are very adept at that. But every time I know that Vance is gonna, and he also says yes to a ton of interviews. And he sits there and I'm like, God, this dude's fucking, that's like a talented retail politician right there. And I say that about a lot of Democrats too, and I don't agree with them, but I'm just like, you're very good at the gig.
Yeah, I think he's, he's definitely the new age Trump and, pushes a lot of the same exact policies, but just does it in a bit, I think, a cleaner way. I think everyone across the spectrum politically would probably agree with that. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about just blind allegiance, anything, and Trump probably only has a couple different areas and positions that he'll stick to and stay firm with. So if you're hitching your wagon to Trump, be prepared for that position on so many different issues to change drastically. And he seems very willing to be amenable to that.
He's like a palatable MAGA messenger. I think that's kind of what it is, right? It's like the dude who was in the Senate. It was kind of like, oh, I can make this like a bit more digestible, take off some of the Trump edge. Granted, we're only a week and a half into the term. Ask me again in a month, and maybe the conversation's way different. We got 4 years of this. Like, holy shit. That's the other thing. I'm sitting there already being like, the last 12 days has been absolutely insane for so many different reasons. And we've got 4 full years of this, folks. Don't worry about this.
I'm like really happy with how, you know, towards the top of the show, of course, this is a very lighthearted program that we have here. And you know, we try to keep things light, but we did have such a serious story off the top. And I think that both of our guests tonight, like Brian and Ant, handled the story in a very professional way, even though like you can joke around and all that. And obviously like care about what happened as a tragedy. But I think they just handled it with a lot of class, and they were also open books. We could ask them about anything, and every week hope we can get guests as amazing as that.
They had good rapport. They had good banter. Mm-hmm. They kept it light. They never really got into it. They got into it in a friendly way.
A friendly way.
A theatrical way.
You would not, by the end of the show, you would not have thought they only met tonight.
Yeah.
No chance.
Right? You'd be like, they know each other. I'm busting each other's balls.
Wait,
like, into it.
can we officially launch the segment now?
Let's do it.
Let's go to overtime.
Welcome to Common Threads Overtime.
Incredible.
To be fair, the last time I saw overtime with Taylor and Dan, the Devils lost in a shootout 5 minutes later against the Florida Panthers. But regardless, good to do Common Threads Overtime. We did last week, backed by such popular demand. Do we have more? Definitely follow the page. Love this. Any other comments we could throw up? I would love to ask Dan a bit more on the FAA stuff because I know how knowledgeable he is. Mm-hmm. Dan, either given the conversation from tonight on the show or more broadly because you track the stuff, like just take us to school, man. What stands out to you?
Well, it was nice. I didn't realize Brian was like an FAA private pilot, a rated pilot. So he went in on a lot of the detail that I would have provided, but yeah, I've seen the videos because I watch these kinds of ATC, videos. That it's all made public. All this stuff. I mean, it's all on radio waves, right? But there's websites that capture the radios, and then you can publicly access archives of different ATC stations and their conversations. So I watch all the routine stuff. Like every day, I watch a couple of different videos that are, routine emergencies and stuff. So, and I can pull it up in a minute, but. Without making any speculation, probably the ATC was already task saturated as it is, but from what I heard, I didn't hear any mistake being made as far as phraseology or protocol. The helicopter...
You're talking about when you actually listen to the feeds of like the FAA, like communicate, or the ATC communicating with the vehicles.
Exactly, the ATC communicating with the aircraft. The helicopter flies visual flight rules. The commercial CRJ flies instrument flight rules. When you're in a commercial plane and instrument flight rules, you're on an approach. Separation from you is maintained by ATC, meaning separating other aircraft from you is maintained by ATC. But if you're flying visually, as the helicopter was, you can maintain your own separation visually once ATC has confirmed with you that you have the aircraft in sight. And that happened twice. I have the video with the helicopter audio, which didn't seem to come through. For the main recordings, like all the things I saw on CNN and things like that, didn't have them. Let me
you were also playing that here in the control room, and you can hear the helicopter itself requesting that it be a visual flight, like they'd be able to gauge where the plane was and know to avoid it. Do you have something here to show?
Sure, I do. This is, and thanks to VAS Aviation, this is one of the channels I watch all the time that put this stuff out very quickly. You can see this is. JIA 5342 is the American CRJ, and this PAT 25 is the helicopter. Here you can see this line exactly. So the ATC gives a pretty comprehensive traffic information here.
Well, American 3130. PAT 25, traffic just off the Wilson Bridge to CRJ is 1,000 north of feet, start runway 33.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That has a traffic inside request special separation. It's difference proof. American 16.
So basically, that's the helicopter. That's the ATC saying, hey, there's a CRJ coming down. I know you're flying visually, so you're not flying on instruments or headings or direct to waypoints or things like that, which is how most commercial flights fly. So they're approved to kind of fly at their own navigation, whereas an instrument flight is you are going to this particular waypoint or you are flying on this particular magnetic heading. So it's more predictable for the ATC. So in this case, they can give visual references that, hey, there's a CRJ coming, just maintain visual separation. You're going to come down the river below them, stay away from the final approach. And the helicopter again later says the exact same thing, that he had the aircraft in sight when the air traffic controller, the tower controller, realizes that there's, they're coming within what the standard minimum separation is for between IFR and VFR flights, about 1.5 miles. So that's allowed if visual separation is being maintained by that visual aircraft. And he asks him again, do you have the CRJ in sight? I see, a collision alert. Tells him to go behind him. And the helicopter confirms aircraft in sight, visual separation, just moments before the collision.
Sorry, what did they just say right there? I had a hard time hearing that.
472, my bad.
Aircraft in sight, press separation.
VISSEP approved.
VISSEP approved.
Approved.
What is VISSEP approved? Visual separation.
Visual separation approved. Yeah.
Approved. I can handle this
sight.
with my own eyes.
Yeah. I see the CRJ.
Right.
I've seen the online, the online, what you call them, sleuths or whatever, suggesting that maybe he saw the American Airlines A320 or something further down the final approach course, and got confused. But he's nearly coming head on. I mean, look at these radar icons here. They're coming right towards each other.
Right.
Meanwhile, that American Eagle flight is making its left-hand turn to line up with this kind of northwest facing runway. So maybe the landing lights were a little bit more obscured on the turn, but he should have seen him and recognized that. Now, I will say they also don't generally approach this runway. They come that one that's kind of straight up, due north is the runway they're approaching. That's the runway the American is approaching. The American Eagle CRJ that went down was explicitly asked to circle to land and make the landing on that other runway, 33. And then in the video, I heard another aircraft actually requested the circle to land on runway 33. So it might have been that there was a strong wind that made landing on the straight north runway kind of uncomfortable, and the planes, they're allowed to request, and ATC are allowed to give them this circle to land where they kind of make the approach the normal way, and then they do kind of a swing out and turn left. So maybe the helicopter wasn't expecting to see circle to lands on that runway 33, which they don't often arrive to. But nonetheless, he confirmed he had visual separation, was maintaining visual separation, and had visual with the aircraft.
We got a comment here. I want to get your take on. And this visual is great. We can also show this. My husband flew Black Hawk helicopters for years, 180-degree view. This is from Straight Talk Turncoat, 180-degree view, and they had a crew chief in the back. I don't know what it was like visually. I know this happened late at night, but I don't know how familiar also you are with Black Hawks, but I mean obviously there's this contingency of people online that are thinking that this could be there could have been foul play or something else going on. Do you have any consideration on that, like considering the view that's the helicopter pilots might have had?
I find that hard to believe. I mean,
to that point, Sabat also is starting to feel that way as well. So this is sort of a growing thing, and I think Trump, mentioning that there could have been something that only is going to further ideas like this.
One of the main theories that there's a VIP on board that helicopter or something that was intentionally taken down. I mean, I don't know if we know who was on that plane, but on that helicopter rather. I don't think yet. I don't see martyring a regional jet as necessary to fake a thing like that. But I don't tend to believe in things that are too conspiratorial. Yeah. I will say, listening to lots of ATC videos and things, there are collision alert incidents, kind of red flag incidents that happen in a scary often quantity, and somewhat regularly. They usually don't end up like this, usually because they're not between, a helicopter flying over. Reagan is a crazy airport. Washington National is a crazy airport situated constant right at the bottom of a completely prohibited zone. I mean, if an aircraft on that approach swang out too wide and he'd be right over the National Mall, and he'd be, in the highest level of security threat. So there's a lot of course, military aircraft that are patrolling that area and things like that. I think it was probably maybe some disorientation. I mean, it was clear skies. We saw the video, but lots of lights coming at them on that approach. They're kind of facing into the approach. There's probably two other aircraft behind the CRJ on that approach. Right. CRJ is a smaller plane. It still has landing lights and beacon and nav lights and things that you would notice, but it could have been. I mean, I think it could be just simply a loss of spatial awareness, basically a loss of it happens a lot in a lot of aviation accidents. You look at your head gets into the controls, right, and your focus gets into the controls, and you end up maybe task saturated. If you're also trying to adjust altitude, you're also trying to follow a course, things like this, and a task like that may be easy to forget about or something. So because it's the only thing that's out the window, right? Everything else will be down here, and then that's out of the window. So, I don't think anything conspiratorial about it, but
well, we really appreciate you like lending your. I know that you study this deeply and just sharing that sort of window. I know that there's a lot online and a lot of people like are throwing out their theories. And of course, that's not to discount people that have military experience and have flown in helicopters like that. But I think it's always good to just remember that confusion happens and not everything has to be a conspiracy. But but still, this is
primarily
answers are demanded.
Yes, and we'll find out. Primarily, it's a tragedy.
Yeah,
we haven't had. I mean, when I woke up to that, I was like. Or that was in the evening yesterday.
Yeah, it was late. It was like 11:30. I think I was texting you about it.
So, yeah, someone messaged it to me too earlier, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah,
like that's huge. And it could have been worse. I mean, Reagan is a smaller airport, but bigger planes than a CRJ land at Reagan with hundreds of people. Not to discount 60 people's lives or 70 people's lives, but nonetheless, these things can get the same accident can hurt a lot more people than it did. So. But yeah, we haven't had an accident like that in a while. The real clarity will come from the black boxes of both the helicopter and the CRJ, because not only do they give you cockpit voice recorders, which may or may not, you might hear the helicopter notice the CRJ very late. It's very macabre stuff. Usually the NTSB these things can become public, or you can make freedom of information requests and get these CVRs. But I'm sure it doesn't happen very early, but I'm sure what we will get information from, which the black boxes have, is all of the inputs to the control surfaces of the aircraft. Pushing down, pulling up, turning left, turning right, rudders and everything like that. And you can see what they're trying to do and what they're talking about, and if that lends any reasoning, like, okay, they made this decision, which was the wrong decision, and we can see that the inputs represent that they were trying to do this, pull up, pull down, whatever, etc. And then that helps to attribute things to pilot error versus something else, which it's almost certainly pilot error, because there wasn't engine failures or anything like that reported on radio. So
right, they seemed calm as they were on the radio talking, and they like communicating almost as if it was so routine. So I mean, literally maybe hitting the wrong switch or moving it the wrong direction. And as you mentioned, there could be weather conditions that we're not fully aware of. But JD, what were you thinking as we were talking about this also in the early part of the show, and also in the political sphere, Trump's response?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are you want to be so careful with speculation, because there's way more that we don't know than we do know, although I do appreciate all the additional context. I think multiple things can be true at once. It is entirely possible that this is an anomalous tragedy, an anomalous mistake, an anomalous, a very rarely happens, right? First or major collision like this, the most tragic collision like this since, 2001. I think that's possible, and at the same time, it will trigger perhaps a necessary conversation on federal government staffing, federal government funding, federal government support from the executive, the role of FAA air traffic controllers. Brian mentioned on the show earlier, Ronald Reagan famously firing the air traffic controllers. It's also true that this may also bring in, as it already has, unfortunate conversations of like finger pointing and a blame game, and an indication from one particularly resentment-driven president to point a finger uniquely at his predecessors in a way that no other president would do. Joe Biden would not stand there. George W. Bush would not stand there. Obama wouldn't stand there and be like, the dude before me fucked up because of these policies I don't agree with, and I'm just asking questions. Maybe it is. I can't stand that. Like, if people do that, Elon Musk does that a lot. It's like, I'm just asking questions. I'm just throwing shit out there. Yeah, but you got the most powerful microphone in the world, and so when you throw out casual, and I'm going to say the president's takes are uninformed, because there's more we don't know than we do know about a tragedy like this. So even if he's got the best intelligence in the world, there's no way he's going to come out here and be like, I'm just asking questions about DEI and fanning the flames about that. All of that can be true in and of itself. It's an incredibly rare tragedy that, these seemingly astronomical odds of all this confluence of factors coming together. And also, it may trigger all these necessary conversations to ensure these agencies are staffed. Right. You don't have a situation of one person working multiple people's jobs. And, I think it's going to be the type of thing we continue to talk about for a long time. Because I think Trump even said today, it's like, we're going to get more information about this years from now. We're still going to go back and be like, hey, remember that tragedy on January 29th, 2025? We actually now learned this that we didn't previously know.
Yeah.
You know, but I am curious when we're talking also about the facts and, you know, his accusation, everything was pretty directly hurled at the FAA, and it was they had DEI policies for whatever reason. Like, it was all like the blame will likely fall at the FAA. I mean, he was very, very loose in talking about how they were probably at fault. But I think as we heard in those flight recordings, it appeared that they did warn the plane. To summarize what Dan was just explaining, the FAA, however many jobs they were working as well, like, they warned the plane or the helicopter appropriately that there is a jet you need to look out for. And I don't, tell me if I'm mischaracterizing it, but the FAA warned the ATC, the control tower warned the helicopter, hey, watch out for this plane, I believe twice.
Yeah.
And the helicopter essentially said, the pilot said, we got it. I see him. We're good. And so at that point, like, when we're talking about the FAA and Trump's blame and ire towards them, you know, and that's a great political target. But as the facts emerge, and as we even just listen to this publicly available recording, it seems pretty clear that that the onus appears, I don't want to speak too soon, but, or at least the air traffic controllers, you could say safely, did what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think, like, well, the NTSB won't give a shit about any of the bullshit with, you know, that the person was unqualified to do the job. Because I've listened to so many of these recordings of emergency situations at rush hour in New York approach airspace, one of the busiest airspaces in the world. And you can tell controller stress in response speed and temperament. They'll even tell pilots, you know, one at a time, guys, or I'll get back to you. Stop calling me, blah, blah, blah. Like, I need to prioritize these things. Rightfully so, but you can tell when they're overworked. And this was not an overworked controller. Like, you can see the flights in and out. This recording shows you the flights that came in and out. Maybe they're saying he was doing the job of 2 because they had open 2 runways. Typically, they'll have a tower controller for each runway. But I don't know. Like, staffing at the FAA has always been a problem. Yeah. Staffing at the FAA has always been a problem. They're always overstaffed or understaffed.
What's it like to get a gig, to apply for a gig, to go through the rigorous training for one of those jobs that you know of?
Well, so I did some research into it because before doing live TV production came into view, being an air traffic controller was something I was interested in because it was a big hobby of mine, flight simulation and aviation. But it's not tempting, and I'll tell you why. Well, beyond every government job has bureaucracy, and working for the government is an animal in its own right. If you want to become an air traffic controller, you first have to be accepted into the program. So there's a whole application process, interview process, background checks, and things like that. Then if you get accepted to be an air traffic controller, you go for 6 months, you move to Kansas City. I don't know really many people who want to do that. Wow. But you move to Kansas City for 6 months to do the training program. Or maybe it's Oklahoma City, actually. It's Oklahoma City. And you're basically, you know, in training, not really being paid, I don't think. Maybe being paid something small. But you have to you have to have money to pay for yourself during this period. And then you get assigned, if you become a certified controller, where the FAA needs people to be assigned to. So you may not come home to where you left, not right away. You'll be basically an apprentice controller for like 5 years. Then you start to get the ability to try to find vacancies at facilities that might be more convenient for you, or places you want to work and things like that. But you have to go through a whole nother examination and certification there before you become a certified controller there. So like New York approach, one of the busiest airspaces, they manage kind of the immediate surrounding, not in the tower, but in a dark room with radar screens, you know, guiding them into the airports. I think there's something like 65 or 70% where they want to be staffed. But their pass rate, their success rate is like sub 50. It might even be in the 20s or something last time I checked. Like, it's a very hard facility. A lot of people can't make it. So the whole comment that, you know, people that are underqualified are getting into these positions is totally bullshit, because I don't think I could pass the test that I would need to be. Not that I'm a brilliant guy, but, you know, I don't think most people that are smart, you know, high IQ or whatever, good at task management, even good at technical domains, learning things quickly, all those skills that you might need, still don't maybe have the temperament, or and they test all that shit. Mm-hmm. And there's also lots of, like, if you are fucking up on the job, you're not going to stay at the job for very long. Yeah, you know, and fuck up means a minor breach of separation minimums. It doesn't mean what happened, right, obviously. So they penalize for far less, and they're very scrutinous. That's why they're so understaffed. Plus, nobody really wants to do this. I mean, you don't make six figures until after the 3-4 year mark. So unless you're 18 and this is your hobby and you have no roots, you'll go to OKC for 6 months. But I was mid-20s looking at it like I already consider myself rooted where I live. Like, I don't want to I'm not going to uproot myself for that, to still need to go 5-6 years, maybe not get the certifications where I want to be. It may take a while to get the top salaries that ATC have always got, So I can understand the staffing problem.
My question was the salary. What's your understanding of what you make in the training? Because I'm reminded of not the same thing. It's not apples to apples comparison, but big conversation with regards to congressional salaries. People think, oh, well, members of Congress shouldn't make that much money. But I think the more potent counter argument is members of Congress should make a really good salary because you don't want to discourage or disincentivize people who are not independently wealthy from running for office, for putting on hold all their other jobs to do work on behalf of the taxpayer. So right now, if you're a member of Congress, I think you make $174K, which is a good salary, but it's not like a fantastic, it's not like, above and beyond. And there's actually an argument for a lot of people to say, no, actually we should make it easier. We should be more actively encouraging people, incentivize people to take these sorts of jobs. And I wonder if this is such a brutal set of circumstances you have to go through as a trainer, to run through, to apply, to prove. What are you taking home in your training that you know of versus what are you hopefully to one day graduate to in terms of a take-home pay?
Yeah, well, training I know the least about. I think I remember reading the numbers because it's government, so it's all very public. And it was like maybe 60 or 70K in the training. Maybe I'm not even sure if that's right. But
I do have some numbers up on VO if you want to throw it up.
That's what you're doing full time, by the way. You're training for the FAA.
To be, and then you'll get into the ones early, and when you are a senior, you'll be maybe in the low twos at the most, maybe upper ones. But let me get Taylor's. I got to replace yours with my video.
And then, of course, you're living, obviously, close to whatever airport you're working at.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if you're working JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, you're living in New Jersey and New York, which is crazy expensive.
Exactly.
If you're living in DCA, you're living in DC, Maryland, Virginia, not cheap.
So there are bonus pays for particular facilities like on top of that. And I think New York Approach being the busiest one or the New York area in general, maybe the airport towers too, is like maybe a 15%. Above the standard national wage.
But here's the answer here. Basically, the median is 137K if you are an air traffic controller in the United States, with the highest 25% of ATCs making more than Congress, 176,000, and the lowest 25% making under 100K.
I don't know. So I think this might be certified controllers. I'm not sure. I think in the training program, you're getting.
Oh, of course, yeah. This is after you've gone through all those years of training that you mentioned.
So yeah, it takes. And by the way, with alternative jobs such as my previous one, like what am I gonna? There was a time I remember growing up, like they would tell you at career day, like here are the jobs that pay the most, and air traffic controller was one of the top ones besides doctor and professional athlete. So if you wanted to do those things, it was a fucking no-brainer. But if you're like, I don't know, I want to do something cool and don't want to be a pro athlete because I'm skinny and whatever, air traffic controller is cool. But now you be a software engineer, you make $250,000 in 10 years or more. Like it's not, and you know what? You can get a bachelor's degree and you can work from home. So why am I going to go to OKC for 6 months, then be need to get to tenure, need to say I want to do this for 40 years to actually make a living out of it. Plus, most of those guys are super stressed out. They don't go there for 40 years. They do 20-year careers or something like that, and then they get out of it and they go into related things like dispatch or stuff that's not this intense.
They burn out,
pressure.
right?
You burn out. The burnout is the alcoholism, the burnout. Those rates are out of the roof for air traffic controllers.
Yeah, we have actually a couple good comments if we want to maybe throw some of these up.
Sure.
And probably the most important coming from Andy RDT. I'm here for Supervisor Dan's expertise, aren't we all? JD, aren't we all?
Wait, let's get that going.
Andy RDT.
Andy RDT. Well, he won't recognize me without the beard, but especially not with the glasses. That's the look.
Oh,
he's got the aviators on.
During the live streams, I do the glasses and a hat. Yeah,
it's way more appropriate now to wear the aviators than in your discussion of the tragic plane crash.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Steph Jones bringing up the point that I'm hearing from a lot of Democrats, which is, it's typical Donnie, blame others, especially Obama, Biden, the Dems, everyone with a blue shirt. Yeah, and everyone's big talk about the staffing, the funding. But to continue on Steph Jones' original point, you don't throw shit out there without knowing the facts, especially one day after a tragedy. And I think that's sort of I agree with you as well. I think it's classless and it's unhelpful. I think when you have so many serious people that are investigating the matter to be the most important person in the country, and you're just sort of making it more complicated.
The other bit of context, if I can, and I didn't get to bring this up with Brian and Ant earlier, but I had this in the doc. For the flashback that kind of brings us to where we are here, Elon Musk is not uninvolved with this story in terms of the FAA. Because you got to think of Elon Musk's role at SpaceX, which has been the subject to lots of litigation, lots of lawsuits, lots of fines from the Biden-era FAA that was concerned about pollution. They were going after SpaceX for the Starship launches and the ecological damage in and around, I think it's Boca Chica in Texas, where they do the Starship launches, which I think the Starship launches are like the coolest thing that humanity is doing. I'm addicted. I love the launches. I think they're awesome. But there's been this battle between FAA and Elon Musk for a long time.
Don't they kill like 17 birds per launch or something?
If it's only 17, I would be surprised because Starship is the biggest fucking thing.
500 per bird.
It's absolutely enormous. So Musk has said, this was on Twitter before the election, that then FAA Administrator Mike Whitaker, quotes, needs to resign. There's a Musk tweet. He says he needs to resign. On January 20th, Mike Whitaker, FAA Administrator, did in fact resign, even though he was agreed on to a 5-year deal. Before today, there was no acting FAA Administrator since Trump took office.
Yeah.
That's 9 days, granted, not a huge amount of time. And then today, Donald Trump named an acting FAA Administrator after this fatal collision. Now, again, to my point earlier, there's a lot of facts we don't know. It's more speculation than fact. I totally understand that. But in terms of an agency response and in terms of the classic political buck stops here type of mentality, there has been no single individual who can come out on behalf of the entire FAA for the last 10 days. And obviously, bless you, Dan.
Thank you.
Obviously, the tragedy is just horrifically timed regardless of when it is. But Chris Rocheleau, was appointed acting FAA head today as Trump criticized diversity efforts and links them to the crash.
And what do you think that position would have been like? Because let's be honest, no matter, like, if someone had a newly installed FAA head, this crash likely would have still happened. Sure. But how would they, if they were still there or whatever, how would this dynamic been different? Like, Trump comes out and he starts hurling shit about the FAA, or like there's somebody he still has installed there, and then he maybe has to own it a little bit more. It is kind of interesting to think about how this situation would be different if there was somebody that would come out and say, I don't know what the fuck the orange guy's talking about, but that doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't have any application to what actually happened here. But yeah, it's interesting that there was no active FAA head when this happened, and I think that's something that's sort of flying under the radar a bit, JD.
Mike Whitaker was unanimously confirmed as FAA Administrator October 2023, stepped down early from his 5-year term on January 20th. So set to have the role through about 2027, 2028.
He saw the writing on the wall. He knew that.
So that's the thing. Like, you ask what's different. It's not that the tragedy would not have happened, but you would have had this, which, I don't know if I say it's a blessing there wasn't there, but this, you would have had a Biden appointed or a Biden appointment era figure now forced to publicly combat and push back against President Trump's like DEI accusations and everything else, all the other shit that Trump's thrown at the wall about this issue. Right. Yeah. You would have had a Biden era appointee more immediately coming out and saying, all right, well, it's clearly not this.
Sticking up for the agency.
Yeah, basically, which is now really what you didn't have. Yeah. So maybe that sort of emboldens or allows, right? Because then you'd have every reporter in the Brady room today being like, well, Mike Whitaker said this first thing this morning, Mr. President, which directly counters you. Not having an FAA chief definitely eliminated at least that part of the story today.
Yeah, well, Trump would have said, look what Biden-era appointees are doing to now this is happening.
And he would have been fired in 2 days.
Yeah. Yep. It's ridiculous. It's a shame because, first of all, it's a tragedy. And he's trying to, have his own talk show about it. He's trying to push the DEI agenda, which isn't, like, we've been listening to that for 3, 4, 5 days now. And all of a sudden this happens and it's like, look. Like, no, that's just what's on your fucking mind.
Yeah.
And now you're like, honeypot. Here we go. I can capitalize on this terrible tragedy. Doesn't fucking matter who the FAA head is. the public can listen to this fucking recording right now and can be informed and know that, that's the day-to-day job of this guy for years. Doesn't matter who the FAA had. First of all, he's represented by the National Air Traffic Control Association union, so they're always at, sparring with the FAA staffing requirements and stuff like that. Like, the FAA tells you how big your seats need to be, as well as the phraseology we use for talking to air traffic control. So, the idea that this broad organization, this important organization, is directly, the air traffic controllers are, directly dependent on DEI or on whoever's appointed. And implicit in all this is that Trump's blaming the air traffic controllers for this, right? Because the air traffic controllers aren't competent because they were hired by DEI policies that the FAA holds. That's why these planes crashed. When, we don't have all the evidence, but what we have already certainly makes other theories look stronger than the air traffic controller committed a mistake. We've got 2 traffic advisories from the air traffic controller, confirmed visual with the aircraft from the helicopter. I mean, but it's just implied in this that the ATC is wrong because of this larger overarching thing that Donald Trump's trying to push.
And there is a Buttigieg component about this too, which was Pete Buttigieg's former transportation head, of course, was one of the people Trump was very quick to go after today. And Trump's all like, he was a disastrous mayor. He ran a city into the ground, South Bend, Indiana, whatever. Trump said, Buttigieg is a disaster. He ran the agency into the ground with his diversity. Buttigieg did respond. We didn't have this in the show today because I thought, I was like, you know what? I feel like Secretary Buttigieg is now a private citizen, but he does sort of represent, obviously, if one president is blaming the previous administration, presumed failures or perceived failures. Buttigieg called it despicable. He said his family's grieves. Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, had 0 commercial airline crash fatalities out of the millions of flights on our watch. And I wonder, this is obviously now, we said this earlier, kind of the first tragedy, of course, of this kind of civilian scale since Trump's been president the last couple weeks. Yeah. But man, if this is any indication of what we get when the slightest little bit of something goes sideways, that it's Trump being very quick to call out Biden and anyone who worked for Biden Harris and being like, well, we inherited this and it's their fault. It's not,
Yeah, we're running low on time here,
Not
but
leadership.
but I know that we were, JD, you and I were talking earlier on about like how long can Trump point to the Biden administration? It's only been 10 days, so
that's it?
Yeah, something like
Jeez.
that. But
10 years older.
yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I think I'm balding.
Prove it.
Yeah, so I mean, just how long does a president get to point back at its predecessor to before he stops?
Well, we got 4 years of this. Can we end on a much more uplifting note?
Why don't we
Please?
do that?
As hockey fans?
Why don't you bring us home?
Well, no. I want to do we're gonna hit. What's one minute?
Okay.
Utah Yeti.
Oh.
I've been obsessed with this. Okay, so we got 2 Florida Panther fans here. I produce a show with all Panther fans. I'm a big Devils fan, but I'm very upset about this. I thought the Utah Yeti was the perfect name for the Utah Hockey Club. There's a trademark issue.
Is it with the coolers?
It's with Yeti brand.
Wow.
And the trademark office like, you can't take the name. And so now they're kicking around all these other names, Utah Mammoth, Utah this and that.
All.
A fan made this very cool series of jerseys for some, they're Spock speculative. You hate all the names, Dan? What do you want?
Well, I saw some tweet, and the 3 that were, one was Utah Hockey Club, same thing, no change.
Yeah.
Don't like that. You have to have a mascot. You have to have a thing.
You think so?
Doesn't have to be a mascot, but it has to be a. It has
says
to be
you
a,
have to.
It has
The Flyers have Gritty. I mean, they made.
Well,
that
yeah,
up.
mascot is one thing, and those will come. But you have to have Miami Heat. That's not a mascot, right? But we've got Bernie and stuff like that. So you have to have a.
What is Bernie? What is it?
Burnie. He's like a flaming, Well, he's not flaming. He's an on fire kind of red-haired orange thing that goes around. He's a mascot. He's on fire, so it's like the Miami Heat. You have to have a thing, whether a person, an animal group, a physical phenomenon, a force of nature, to name your team after, so that people can have something to. What am I going to? Utah Hockey Club, the Clubbies. Can't wait to go see the Clubbies play today. You have to have something. Mammoth is cool. I'm okay with Mammoth.
But you like Yeti better.
I like Yeti the most.
I loved Yeti too.
Yeti was the best.
Taylor, what do you think? If it's not Utah Yeti, anything else? I like Utah Hockey Club. What do you think?
Oh man, I wish I had a better alternative. But yeah, Dan, I'm just really fascinated by how the rigidness of your belief that there has to be city nickname. I don't know if I've ever heard you speak with such passion before.
Name a team that doesn't have a thing.
Does every team have a mascot in pro sports?
Again, not talking about a mascot. Those will come, whatever. But a thing, right? It has to be named after an entity of some sort, right? Can you name? I see you're churning over there.
I don't like a.
Again,
I probably wouldn't mind like a Utah Blizzard.
That's great.
Listen,
I like how you think I like how you think I'm being rigid. I'm giving you the universe of things that exist.
I know, but your
fucking name,
your structure of
animals,
what has
people,
to be
jobs,
this,
professions,
then that.
physical phenomenon, nature, physics.
You just don't like
stars.
hockey. You don't like the
They wouldn't do Blizzard. I'm sorry, I got to correct myself. Sorry to cut you off, JD. It can't be Blizzard because there's already Avalanche. And I think the Yeti thing was also an issue because there was like a big foot on the shoulder patch of the Colorado Avalanche. So that was an issue as well. Because it's like, who gets the fucking Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch thing? Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I would be in favor of Utah Hockey Club compared to what else I've seen. I don't, it's okay if Dan doesn't like me for it, but I'm actually at peace with that.
I'm pro Utah Hockey Club too. I think it's clean. I think it's simple. It's reminiscent of our friends in the world of football, known to soccer as some.
Taking myself off screen.
I'm gonna shout out Nickelodeon, who's a frequent commenter on the show. He texted me this week and he said, "I don't get why Yeti didn't just sponsor the team. You call the arena the cooler." Done. Make it your whole brand.
That's great.
Utah Yeti, sponsored by Yeti. And the thing is, like, if you look at like VGK, some of these new teams that pop up, like, you could have a ton of smashing success. Like, what if Utah Hockey Club's in the Stanley Cup Finals next year and you get Yeti the cooler brand's like, son of a bitch, we missed our shot. We should have just embraced this whole thing. We could have been there front and center. Could have done like your own Yeti versions of the cup when they win.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
$5 extra a beer, and you get to take the Yeti home. Every beer in the stadium comes in a Yeti. Could you imagine?
Dude, all this just writes itself. It's just It's just what a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
well, I
thought we believed in capitalism.
Thought we did, but now we're gonna see what happens with the Utah Hockey Club. All right. Well, we should always do just a little bit of hockey check here at the end of the week. We good to wrap this up. This is a killer show.
Yeah. Why don't we end on
one
JD?
more time for Brian and Ann.
Yeah.
Absolutely
good job,
crushed
guys.
it. And
Here,
a
I'll
big
give you the
shout out to
definitely
Taylor and
return
Dan
customers.
For CT Overtime, returning customers, big time. Folks, thank you so much. We had so many people tuning in across Rumble, X, YouTube, Twitter, the whole nine. It's your first time watching the show. Thank you so much for hanging with us, not just with Brian and Ann, but for the boys here in the studio in Brooklyn as well for tonight. This is Common Threads. We do this every Thursday night starting at 7 o'clock. Been an awesome show. By this time next week, we'll be back with a whole new show, and it's going to be wild because a lot's going to happen. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.